Moving on from the last tutorial where we looked at how to arrange our nodes, here are a few other features that come in useful when we're organizing our pipelines. Let's just quickly build a simple pipeline similar to how we did before. Add some random effects, some radial blur, and just change the color of that a little bit. Okay. So at the moment we have a single path going up through these effects. As you'll remember, Alt dragging makes a duplicate. The Alt also works with the inputs themselves. So if I Alt and drag this input, you can see I create a duplicate path. So let's quickly just make some alternative effects on this side. So now I have the title feeding up one side, delivering this, and feeding up the other side doing that, which obviously we can recombine with something straightforward. The benefit of this sort of workflow is, of course, these effects are being driven from a common root. So if now we wanted to change the title, we can see all the effects are reading that original title instance. Another useful function on the nodes display is grouping, and there's a menu for it here. Grouping involves taking a set of effects and putting them all in a container by pressing Group or the keyboard shortcut G. A green box like this signifies that there are other things inside. You can see the effect is still working, just everything's hidden in a box just to keep things neat and tidy. If I want to access what's in that box, I could either ungroup, which is Shift G on the keyboard, or alternatively I can page inside the group. So just to prove a point, if I put another color corrector on the output of the group, if I navigate into the group, there's navigate in and out here or page up and down on the keyboard, then what I'm actually now doing is working inside that container box. Notice that color corrector I added is not there anymore. That's because it's outside the box. We're looking inside the box. Effectively, it's a nodes layout inside another nodes layout. So if I page up, that's the master level, page down, that's inside the group. And you can have groups inside groups inside groups. So it's just a way of being able to make your nodes displays more readable by perhaps containing together groups of effects that achieve one thing. Another way of accessing what's inside the group is to click with Control and Shift enabled, and that will temporarily expose what's inside the group. This then allows you to make alterations, seeing the resulting context, and Control Shift click on the group again will just wrap it all back up. So I'm just going to ungroup this, Shift G, Control and drag to drag the whole tree. Another variant of groups is to be able to create templates for effects. So if I temporarily remove this title generator from the stack, put it to one side for a second, instead what I'm going to put in is one of these dummy instances here. So I'm just going to choose dummy 1, and I'm just going to connect it up as I did before. What you'll actually see is this single box. We'll come to that in a second. Essentially what I've made now is a stack that when it's grouped will create my own effect, which I can add in as a node. So if I select everything here and press G for group, you can see I get a different style of group, and it's not a green box anymore. And in fact, this style of group has an input. So if I give it the input, you can see that my effect comes to life. The reason being that inside this dummy group, as it's called, is a dummy input. So whatever I present to input 1 of the dummy group or the template gets passed to here. So this then allows me to build my own effects, which I can then reuse across projects. There are up to 9 different dummy inputs. So for example, if I were also to add in dummy 2 and maybe connect it to that side instead, you can actually see that what we've got here is 1 box and 2 boxes. The 1 box signifies the placeholder for dummy 1. 2 boxes signifies the placeholder for dummy 2, and so on. So if I now page up, I can now give this 2 different inputs. You can see that only one of the inputs has come to life because I've only got one there. So if I duplicate this and put it to input 2, now this title is going to the second dummy. So these dummy groups or template groups make an ideal way of defining your own effects and saving them for later use. To save a group, press Ctrl-C to get it in your cut and copy buffer and go to the media browser and press Create Group. It'll ask for a name, and within the output folder of your project you'll have an effect that ends in .grp with your name. And at any point you can just bring that back up to your nodes display to be added in again. We'll look at the media browser in more detail in a different tutorial. Just one other thing that's occasionally useful when building the nodes pipelines. There's a little null object called connect. So if you end up in situations where your lines are getting a bit messy, so let's say I was going to connect that directly to there, what I could do is, instead of making a direct connection, if I were to put in a connect here, I could actually instead connect via here. So it just gives me an elbow so I can help pull my line around and make my display more readable. It does absolutely nothing to the image.